All right, boys.
Hey, Taylor.
We're going to be breaking into what should be, for me, a multi-episode arc.
Oh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh.
We got ourselves a part one.
Well, so what's your name and what's this podcast?
Well, my name is Taylor, and this podcast is Tales from the Slide Deck. And I'm joined by my co-hosts. To my right.
Oh, I'm Ryan. Hi. Huh.
And on the internet, coming from cyberspace USA, it's me, Zach.
Oh, hi, Zach.
We thankfully saved up enough money to turn Zach into a computer.
Yep.
Oh, he's a
Beep,
typer
beep,
now.
boop, boop, boop. I'm a computer now, boys.
But yes, there's so much content into what I want to jump into in these next few episodes. Like, I've been finding myself like having to axe stuff. I've been racking my brain, and this was kind of the episode where I had like the most spaghetti to throw at the walls, and I had to pull a lot of noodles off.
Okay.
And this is the spaghetti that's left over. So if there's anyone who's a real diehard Toyota head, who gets upset that I didn't cover your specific subject of interest, don't worry, we'll get around to it.
Okay.
These are just a couple stories I found interesting.
Keep your damn pants on.
So this episode is Toyota Sports Corner,
Ooh.
aka Tosco. Boys, we're going racing these next couple laps. Yeah, big vrooms, and we got to address what is racing.
Ooh.
The
This
elephant in
sounds
the
like a
room.
trick.
There's a couple answers.
Because, I mean, racing is always competitive.
That's true.
I'm trying to hit the always here. It's always competitive. Doesn't always have to be more than one car racing at one time, because you could do things based on time.
You can do a time attack. That is also true. Yeah, where you're just one car on one track.
Yeah.
Like that Cake song, just trying to set the best time possible. This is all true.
You don't need You don't need a circuit. It could be like a drag race where it's just a point A to point B.
Absolutely.
There's tons of other
Is it
races
just
that
a
are-
means to finding an answer to the top or like the best of something?
These are all very literal answers to what is racing, boys. And I do appreciate your earnestness in this. But let's start off with a couple ground rules.
Okay.
First off, Rubbin's racing.
Oh, I love Days of Thunder so fucking much.
Hell yeah.
Oh, okay.
He didn't crash into you. He didn't slam you. He just rubbed you. And Rubbin's racing. Second off, if you ain't first, you're last.
Damn right.
Okay.
Third, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Bringing back Eddie Guerrero, that fucking quest.
Lie, cheat, and steal, dude.
Absolutely. You know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying to win. And if you ain't first, you're last. And you might have to do a little rubbing. And rubbing's racing.
I mean, all sports have some small cheating aspect to them, but is cheating in racing? Is it almost sort of not encouraged?
It's pretty much a given.
It's a
in
given.
motorsport.
Everyone is cheating in their own way.
Everyone's trying to find
Everybody
a way
wants
to get
the
an
edge.
advantage. So many race classes are like everyone has the same machine, and so then it just becomes like, you know, who has the best driver is oftentimes what like you're attempting to find in a motorsport. Like if everyone's racing the exact same car with the exact same horsepower in the exact same conditions. You know, all it really comes down to is who's the best driver, and there's only one of those
Yeah.
in any given race.
Yeah.
And if you're not that person, well, you got to find another way
You gotta
to
find
be
a
a
way
little
to-
faster.
To scrape off some thousandths of a second. Make sure that you're in front of somebody who's favored to take the lead in the race, you know.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can cheat to win. You know, getting around restrictor plates, putting a little extra horsepower into it, shaving a little weight one way or another. You know, there's great stories of race car drivers who would acid dip the car to take, you know, ounces
just to
overall
take
off
off
it.
like the top layer of like molecules off all like steel and shit like that.
Yeah, get
Well,
that
wasn't it,
aluminum.
like, Richard Petty's car had a special spoiler that had him grip the ground better. And
Yeah.
so then that became an outlawed thing, but that was his edge. That was his way of. I mean, he was very external about it, very blatant about it, but it's the same thing, right?
I mean, that was the Dodge Daytona or the Plymouth Roadrunner, depending upon which dealership you were going to, and it was a legal car in NASCAR. It was just so good that they decided, no, you can't do that anymore, and so that's why that was banned. But yeah, that was the aerodynamics. People in America hadn't thought about like aerodynamics on a car yet. And fun story about that. That's because Chrysler actually had an aerospace division at the time.
Oh.
Or Mopar, I guess. Chrysler, parent company of Dodge, Plymouth, Chrysler, all under that umbrella. And they were losing a lot in NASCAR. And at one time, like, one of the guys from the racing division was sitting in the cafeteria with one of the guys in the aerospace division who are working on, like, NASA contracts to build rockets.
They're just like, why don't you make your car streamlined?
And why don't you make it, like, why don't you put a nose cone on it? That's what we do to make rockets cut through the air faster. You got way too much drag on this, like, Charger that has a massive flat grill up front. If you put a big ass cone on the front of it,
so obvious now, but it's definitely like a cafeteria conversation where somebody's just like, "Oh, we gotta start sketching out. Like, it's gotta look like a triangle. It's gotta
look like a billboard going down the highway.
It's got to cut through the air like a hot knife through butter."
Yeah.
And it's great that you brought up a NASCAR example, particularly one of my favorites in the Dodge Daytona or Plymouth Superbird, because another rule of racing is if you win on Sunday, you sell on Monday.
Let's go, baby. What does that mean?
This is why. Well, first off, that's an Xbox achievement screenshot.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to read the small text. You won a race in all brands of car.
Yep. NASCAR the game 2011. That's what came up when I typed in that phrase into Google, and it just rocked with it.
So like if you're, say, a Dodge wins the race on Sunday, oh, wouldn't you know it, there's an uptick in Dodge sales on a Monday.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Americans
Oftentimes,
are so stupid.
Oh, it did good. I saw it on the TV. It did good.
This is a universal aspect in racing. Everyone's this stupid, apparently, because this is a worldwide phenomena. But yeah, no, that's like racing is an extremely expensive endeavor. You have to spend lots of money in research and development. You have to spend lots of money on having multiple cars. You have to spend money on recruiting the most like talented drivers and crews, and like logistics teams. So
not to mention the gas. I mean, come on.
The gas is also
gas is not
tires.
cheap. Am I right, boys?
Not in this economy. But every auto brand adheres to this principle, and if you're selling more cars because you're winning more races, like you're justifying the endeavor of racing these cars. And last, kind of.
Oh my God, you got
not
an
as
essay.
catchy, but with competition comes progress, as well as excitement among motoring fans. The aim of racing is not just to satisfy our curiosity, but rather to enable the development of the Japanese passenger vehicle industry. Kaiichiro Toyota.
Kaiichiro knows how to play the game.
Taylor, I love artistically how you have all of these really great, important messages so big and bold, and then the most stupidest, dumbest one is the tiniest. I love how what an artistic choice you did on this slide, and I love it.
So Toyota is essentially saying here, and I'm trying not to be a total dum-dum, but it's been a day. He's basically saying like, no, we're getting into racing so we can make a better family economy car, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah. Like
it's a trickle down, use of that technology that you gain from.
We're going to develop things to make our cars faster on the track or on the dirt or wherever in a river, wherever they may be happening to drive. And like those advancements that we make, like we'll refine, we'll make cheaper and more easily like available to the consumer, and like pass that down in like the cars that we sell to the public.
This is very futuristic too, because on the grander scheme, aside from cars, we look at modern technology of like for medicine and everything, and how that has trickled to bettering everyone's everyday life. Whereas at first you had the technology of amputation and everything to satisfy a need of like taking care of somebody's limb, but now you have the possibility of upgrading someone's life as they were born, rather than a situation that they got into. To say that racing is not just to make an exciting product for fans, but it also, the more focus you put in on it, the more it will impact the rest of the industry altogether. It's really, really insightful for being such an old quote too.
Yes, this is actually from 1952.
Oh, damn.
5 years before Toyota would enter any sort of auto race. This was the vision of Keiichiro Toyota. Yeah, and I did, like, I wanted to put it small also to, like, visually juxtapose it to all of these very, like, catchy, dumb one-liners that people think of when they think of, you know, the inherently, admittedly dumb sport of auto racing.
It does sum up. Your first 4 points do sum up racing, though. But with point number 5, it's taking it in a more, like, good old Toyota here is very philosophic. Like, he's a philosopher.
He's seeing into the future of what they want to do. That pursuit of making ever better cars cannot be achieved without putting them through some sort of trial. Yeah. And this is Toyota's philosophy entering racing. But first, we're going to get started with Toyota Technocraft Ltd. and Toyopet Cibico Ltd.
I've never heard of these.
Yeah, these are some, you've heard of them in some way, shape, or form, at least Toyota Technocraft. On our left here, we actually have, which I also have on my shirt, one of the second Toyota logo.
It goes hard. I like it a lot.
Yes, and this is also the first logo that says Toyota instead of Toyota. Their first handful of cars in the 30s and the 40s rocked the family name with a D on them. And then in, I believe, the mid-40s, they began to mix it up, and they came up with this, which this is in, I think...
It's really stylized katakana?
Yes, exactly. That was the word I was struggling to bring to forth.
No, and it's like, and I'm trying to see... It's a damn good logo, but it's like looking at like a Burlington Northern logo and not seeing the B and N in it. You're just like, that looks nice.
Yes. And it actually says Toyota. There's an extra stroke that would have to be on this in the katakana if you wanted to do Toyota with a D.
Yeah.
And since this is 8 strokes exactly in the katakana, which is viewed as a lucky... sort of like a symbol of luck, is having only a lucky number of 8 strokes as opposed to 9. That's basically where they went, like, all right, we're Toyota now. Because that's what works for the logo. And they wrapped this for quite some time until they inevitably went to just, you know, like the basic type Toyota that they had all the way through the 80s. And then what everyone would recognize as the Toyota logo of, you know, the concentric ovals.
Yes. That spells out a T.
Yeah. You can actually, if you kind of look and you're really stoned and you look at it hard enough.
It has all the letters.
You can make a Toyota out of it. But the A is kind of fucked. And so is the Y. Really, it's mostly the O and the T's that are all right.
It's a really classy modern logo, though. I mean, I can't gush.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Enough about it.
I would love it if they started bringing it back, like from the factory on cars. Like there's like a cottage industry of people that'll sell you decals or like, you know, 3D printed emblems with this logo on it if you want to like really weeb hard on your vehicle. But yeah, so that is the original Toyota logo. Also kind of what you would see if you were being visited by a Toyota Technocraft or if you were visiting them yourselves. To call back to a few episodes ago with the Great Toyota War, Toyota, you know, when it first got its start, it was, you know, making a small amount of vehicles, typically a lot more trucks than passenger cars because the Japanese economy in the 1930s and then in the 1940s and even into the mid 1950s wasn't strong. You didn't have a large consumer base for vehicles. So you had people that, could barely afford a car, and they couldn't afford another car anytime soon if they did have one. So you have to keep the vehicles that you've sold on the road, or else people, to hopefully the next time this person's looking for a car, they're going to come back in to a Toyota store.
They'll remember the positive experience they had with both the store, the craftsmanship of the car,
absolutely,
the service. Because I remember in one of your earlier episodes too, you talked like they would send a Suzuki. They would send Mr. Suzuki out to personally inspect and fix your car.
Yes, and those were representatives of Toyota Technocraft.
Oh, okay.
Who are like if your vehicle still ran, just was damaged or needed a repair, you could bring it into one of their shops, or sometimes they would, in earlier days, they would actually send someone out to you. Traditionally, a Toyota Technocraft mechanic and an engineer. So the mechanic fixes your ride, and the engineer is there to figure out why did it break. And how do we build the next model better so that it doesn't do that?
Right.
The engineers there keeping receipts in essence of
exactly
what went wrong.
Giving a fuck it's incredible.
Oh yeah.
They're using the 5 whys.
Yeah.
That corporate philosophy of we need to get to the root cause of this problem. Like the car won't start. Why? Well, because, it's not getting fuel. Why is it not getting fuel? Well, because we're using this fuel pump, and the fuel pump sucks. How do we... Okay, so that's our root cause.
Why does it suck? Is it because of who we're buying it from? The materials it's made of?
Yeah. And there are legendary stories when it comes to parts suppliers of Toyota, if one... say alternator in a shipment from Denso has come out to be faulty, found in the factory, they send the entire shipment back and tell them do it again. But yeah, so that is Toyota Technocraft. They are Toyota's in-house body shop. They'll pop out your dents. They'll do your tune-ups. They'll do your major maintenance. They'll go out to you and do repairs if necessary. And also the engineers who are working alongside the mechanics to hopefully develop an ever better product. So, and in our middle here, we have the Toyopet Crown Custom. Now, Toyopet is sort of the grandfather of Scion in a lot of ways.
So is Toyopet a sub company within Toyota?
It's still under the Toyota brand.
Yeah.
It's just Toyopets were it was a contest where people picked up a name for one of their new stores. Toyopet is what was inevitably decided upon. And so you had Toyota stores where you would get your sort of upper echelon models of Toyota. And then as they were beginning in the 1950s to make more affordable, more mass produced models
these were your it says, a new family car concept. This is your family cars.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure since this advertisement's in English, I would guess that this is probably an Australian magazine advert or newspaper, something of that nature. But yeah, this is the Toyopet or Toyota Crown, which is sort of kind of their flagship car. This is the sort of Model T of Ford.
Okay.
The first car that they could bring to the masses. We had already talked about the AA as a passenger car, but that was once again, extremely expensive, not hyper reliable because Toyota was just getting on its feet as an auto brand. But yeah, so the Toyopet is sort of, and the Crown is where Toyota kind of gets it started becoming a household name in Japan.
I'm seeing this car has 65 horses under that hood, baby.
And I'm seeing it carry 6 people, it says. 6 passenger.
Six bodies in a 100-inch basic car.
Yep, that's from from cluckhole to fuckhole on that car. That's how. That's
100 inches of pure steel.
100 inches of Nippon steel, keeping you and your family of 6
folded 1,000 times
going down the road. But yeah, we'll go back into the Crown in probably several future episodes. It's sort of the platform in which
put a pin in that.
Everything is based off of. And then last here we have Tosco.
Oh yeah, I remember
racing
you from
equipment. And this was sort of a subdivision within Toyota Technocraft because in the 1950s, Australia was starting off some rally-style racing.
Okay.
And in 1957, they had invited the Japanese automakers to participate and send teams to Australia to race. So in 1952, Keiichiro Toyota has this quote, this, somewhat prophetic quote of like, racing is what will make our cars better cars. And then, he gets the folks in Toyopet CBCO Ltd, Tosco for short, also given the loving nickname of Toyota Sports Corner.
Okay.
He gets them sort of like, hey, like, let's get ready so that, when we do enter the racing market, like, we've got a team ready to go. So you guys, you've done the work, you've got the engineers, like, let's start figuring out how to make things like the Crown a little sportier and a little more ready for the world of automotive racing. And in 1957, the call came, and Toyota answered, along with a few other Japanese automakers, and they entered the 1957 Mobile Gas Round Australia Rally.
Holy shit, they go around the whole sumbitch?
The whole motherfucker. So
what? That's Australia in the middle?
This is Australia. This is like sort of a half of the course. And I don't think this one's exactly the 1957 map.
Sure.
I tried to find it, but these are, a 70-year-old races at this point.
Yeah.
So there's hard things to find, but you actually do get a pretty good idea of what the path was. I think
on the logo,
it starts
like,
in, yeah.
That's so.
Does it say actually is it 6,500 miles?
For the one in the middle, but
yes,
but we don't know if that's the race.
I mean, even if that's the ballpark within 1,000, I'm still impressed.
It looks like it'd be double the length if you're doing the 1957 Mobile Gas. Like it would be somewhere around like 10,000 miles.
I must have missed that.
Close.
The first one was the 1957 one was around the whole goddamn island of Australia.
Yeah. And that one in the middle looks like it's just
a half marathon.
But I mean, it gets the point across where like even if you're doing half of Australia, that looks like hell. That's gonna put any car through hell.
It's a grueling auto trial, and this is kind of why it was a perfect proving ground for Toyota to sort of enter the world of automotive racing. Like I said, I don't believe that this map that we see here, the Redex 6,500 mile car reliability trial, I believe that is one from one of their earlier iterations. They began this race series in 1952, and I believe it still kind of exists in one way, shape, or form today. But specifically in 1957, they did expand the race course out to being all around the continent, which ended up being 9,000 miles.
Let's go.
Hey.
A 9,000-mile race that took 19 days to complete.
Wow.
And you know like a good 14 of those is just going to be in balls hot desert.
You're just, I mean, this is 1950s Australia. They had like 2 roads.
Yeah.
So whatever, like it's.
And you're driving on neither of them.
No, it's gonna be an extremely grueling trial for Toyota in its first race ever. Yes, so this is our Crown Deluxe. It was modified, I believe, based off of some of the statistics Zach was reading on the last slide. This one, that one might have been a later model Crown, because this one, being souped up and tuned up, had a whopping 48 horsepower.
Woo!
Wow.
48 horses, 48 ponies, baby.
Yep, the ranch, because that's where you keep all 48 of your horses.
I like the white wall tires. Like those are looking Australian dirt, like red within 16 seconds.
4 feet of the start
It's a
line.
British ass looking car, like so tiny. It looks like a
It
BMW, little Italian job type car.
It does have that little European styling.
Yeah, no, it looks
to its
very
body.
much so like the sedans that we had in Europe and America at the time, but obviously just smaller because, it's Japan. You have smaller people. You have,
smaller roads.
Much smaller roads. You have tight, cramped city like conditions that, having a large, long, wheelbase that something, 100 inches long is going to be a little difficult to navigate around. But yes, so this is the Crown Deluxe, the team, the boys in the car for those 19 days and those 9,000 miles. You have Kojiro Kondo,
My favorite.
and then Kunio Kaminomura. They're switching off back and forth in the driver's seat.
One's the Naruto, one's the Sasuke, one's the bad boy.
Just pushing each other to become ever better. Wow. And then they also had an Australian navigator on board named Lindsay Headley. Who was, which had to be
Lindsay Headley.
Only 3 teeth to his name.
Yeah.
Wears a fucking boonie hat with like corks
3 teeth
on
and a
it.
hat and 1 buck knife, 1 Bowie knife.
I imagine this is an interesting 19 days where you have what would later become known as a bogan, which is like an Australian redneck. Yes. Someone who knows the bush enough to be the navigator for an around the continent race.
Wow.
How many snakes do you think he killed along the way?
Easily 10.
Can you
on the first day.
imagine the conversations they are having?
That's a great point, Zach, because I would imagine this man probably doesn't speak 1 word of Japanese.
And they
barely
not 1
speaks
word of
English.
Australian English.
Yeah. Just quiet. Just city pop, just playing lightly on the radio. As they're going through what appears to be like, I assume floodplains, rivers, flash flood areas.
Yeah,
shit like
I
that.
don't know exactly if this is a river or if this is just sort of like a standing body of water out in the outback. But yeah, like this was a like
It's Big B's puddle.
on a Toyota history racing website. They're like, look at the 3 team members from like Team Tosco having a great time out on the race.
But so that's actually from that race, though, huh?
Yeah, that is the same Tosco Crown Deluxe there,
down
just
there in the bottom right?
fording through the river. Yeah,
Wow.
just having a grand old time. Well,
And is
there
that
are
a
some
VW
onlookers.
bug behind them too? Is that what I'm spotting?
Yes,
Yeah.
V-Dub was actually sort of the car to beat in a lot of these because V-Dub had existed for, I suppose, a few more years, and they
Really?
the Bug was already a relatively proven platform. I mean, hell, we made buggies out of them. Charles Manson loved doing that shit, taking a Volkswagen and making it crazy good at racing in the desert. He even put
So it
armor and
makes
a gun
sense.
on one I had read.
Whoa, is that a tactical?
Yeah, it's a technical.
Yeah,
Technical.
Charles Manson had the Manson family had a technical.
Does the Australian with the Bowie knife count as a technical in this?
No, but a boomerang, yes.
if he had a boomerang? Oh, shit.
Yeah, if Lindsay leaned out with a boomerang to nail his 15th snake that morning, they would have been a technical. And then the last one up here is unrelated to the 1957 race. I just found it when I was Googling around Australia because
This is really wholesome.
it
This is
amuses
really-
the living shit out of me that you just have a guy here who I think his name is Jimmy Cigarettes.
From Cigarette Racing Team?
Yeah. Well, if you look very closely, there it does say Marlboro down the side of this
damn.
car and on the hood. This is back in the days when we wanted to try and promote cigarettes to everyone.
We weren't
possibly
selling
could.
enough of them. We need to start promoting them on cars and
Yeah.
stuff.
And this is sort of in the 1970s. I think this is the 1979 round Australia, which I'd
Yeah.
also seen like an advertising for when it's supposed to be like the Ford Falcon versus the Holden Commodore were the 2 titans in this race. And so this is the Holden team with their Commodore. And clearly they won because now you got a digital video disc that's rated G for all general audiences.
Everybody needs to see this.
Not a
Well,
curse
everyone
word in
needs-
sight on this movie.
No.
Oops, all cunts.
Yeah. Which isn't a swear in Australia.
It's just
Uh,
one word spoken.
Yeah, so that one greatly amused me. But yes, so Toyota did cross the finish line in this race. And would you boys like to guess what position they took?
Oh, number 1.
Lucky number 8.
Zach's guessing Ichiban. We got a lucky number 8, which is Roku, I think.
Ishini Sanyong.
Roku.
Roku 6.
Hachi.
Yeah.
Hachi. Fuck. Yeah.
The name of that damn dog.
It was one of the 2 of them. But yes, so they not. You guys were a little optimistic. I appreciate it. They took 47th.
Hey!
Wow.
There were 86 cars that started the race, and surprisingly, like given the conditions, 9,000 miles through fucking brutal terrain for 19 days, 52 of them finished.
Oh damn! Okay,
They
that's
were
better
the
than I was
back of
thinking.
the
I was
finishing
thinking they were
line?
going to be the last one to finish.
No,
isn't it?
they weren't. They weren't last place, but they were certainly. But they weren't first, so they might as well have been last. There were 51 cars that got last place in this race, if our rules teach us anything. But Toyota was extremely excited about the performance of this because hey, that's a great, we got so much interesting data about how our car held up, which actually held up great. There was just some dents in the fenders, but mechanically that car was sound. You could you could jump back in and drive another 9,000 miles in it. You could do the course in reverse. It was that ready and raring to go. So Toyota was extremely proud. They got a lot of interesting data from their Tosco, Japanese Tosco team members that they were ready to bring back into motorsport so they can become a little bit more competitive.
Okay.
And which they did the next year. Apparently, rally fever struck Japan because of this. Because in 1958, the next year, Japan's like, we're doing round Japan.
Whoa.
Oh, they're just
They made their
why
own
not?
race with strippers and gambling.
There's Japanese version of Lindsay, who's just some bumpkin who just knows the ins and outs of where the good 500 yen vending machines are.
He knows where the good boss coffee is.
He knows where they
knows-
throw out the good sushi late at night.
He knows exactly where the bears attack old people, so you can steer clear of that area. But yeah, so I couldn't find actually all that much or any pictures of this rally. People didn't really celebrate it all that much. I was able to only find text-based inquiry information here.
It's not still going on today?
Honestly, I have no clue.
Gotcha.
When I Googled it, 1958 round Japan rally, I kept getting diverted to WRC rally thing. So it may have gotten folded into that. I'm not very familiar with many Japanese rally races.
Okay.
That usually happens in sort of the Europe, Australia, Africa area. But they did it, and there was many Japanese teams and some Australian teams that have participated.
Oh, hang on,
and
guys.
wouldn't you know it?
Hang on, guys, real quick. Something just happened. Nothing recording wise. It just is not recognizing my
Computer
headphones for a
shit.
second, so you're coming out of my speaker.
That's.
Which is gonna affect that. So give it 1 second.
Fix it.
Install the drivers.
Probably helps if we're talking, right? So
Yeah,
you know
it probably
where
would if we're just making noises.
making noises
There
so
we go.
you can
We're back.
figure out where.
Sorry about
we're
that.
back. Okay. Yeah,
But yep.
I'm editing this. We don't need to talk
Yeah.
about
So we have our 1958 Yomiuri Round Japan Rally. And wouldn't you know it, Toyota came in first on this one. It took them 1
Oh.
year
Had home field
to figure
advantage.
out.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
They know these streets. They grew up on
Yeah.
these streets. There's
Nissan
more than 2 streets.
Nissan was also racing. I think Honda was there. There was a lot of home teams for the Round Japan Rally. And I don't think that there was a Lindsay for this one because the winning team was actually a husband and wife duo of Yukiyasu and Misako Togo. Who were just a husband and wife team who fucked around in a Crown Deluxe just like that one.
I want this movie.
Yeah, I think it would be a fun, wonderful, little
I
indie
want this
rom-com.
Oscar bait.
Yeah. A foreign film, indie rom-com about a relationship on the rocks that's repaired and around the country rally race.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, interesting also sort of fun fact that Yukiyasu, or Togo-san, actually would later become the president of Toyota USA.
Oh, damn.
What?
Yeah.
He really worked up the rank.
I
I
mean,
mean, getting first helps you in that.
I can't say whether there's a direct line of, hey, you won the first home rally in Japan for Team Toyota.
It didn't hurt his chances.
It
Right.
definitely helped the resume out. Absolutely. But yeah, so Toyota has gotten a fucking taste. It got that first hit of racing over these couple years, and they didn't want to quit. But, you know, Toyota's still at this point in time not really making that many exciting cars. They inevitably come out with a callback to my first episode, the Toyota Sports 800, but that's got a really tiny engine. It's a little car. It's not all that fast. It's like a sporty passenger vehicle, but it really isn't what anyone would consider to be a sports car. And Toyota's also looking for a flagship vehicle, which is an auto industry term for like kind of the car that's not like necessarily for everyone. Like Dodge with the Challenger or the Viper, Ford with the GT. Like when you go to a Ford dealership, they have like some of them, if they're lucky enough to have one in stock, will have like a Ford GT, which is a car that like I think retails at most dealerships for somewhere north of $800,000. So like not everyone's just waltzing right in to buy a Ford GT. But, you know, it's kind of the thing, like, you can attract people into the dealership with.
It looks flashy, has a lot of good stuff under the hood.
Yeah. So you might not come in looking to buy a Toyota sports car, but you come in to get a gander at it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And once you know it, like, yeah, maybe I could make it work in a Crown. Maybe that, you know, my family could use a car, and then you end up buying a car. So it's something that, you know, you use in your advertising. It's your like sexy supermodel mascot that you use to drive in the masses. Yeah. But Toyota, you know, just doesn't have one. But we get by with a little help from our friends.
Oh my gosh, Yamaha's involved in this?
Yeah, baby.
The Yamaha?
The Yamaha.
Maker of bikes.
Maker of guitars. Maker of the side-by-sides.
Maker of fucking everything, man. They make so much shit. But yeah, so we got... we have Toyota and Tosco, who have worked with Yamaha a little bit, because in 1955, Yamaha, which started out as a music instrument company, but they gotten by 1955 into motorcycle building. And they, you know, use some technical influence, you know, talking at the bar, salaryman to salaryman. You know, you get a little trade secrets flowing on through, and you get a little knowledge that helps you make your motors a little bit better. So your motor bicycles and motorcycles can, you know, be a little bit better, a little higher quality. You learn some trade secrets. Yeah. But Yamaha specifically, 1887 is when it began. When didn't get the first name of the creator, began fixing reed organs in Japan.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That was his repair. And actually you can see sort of the influence of someone who repairs pianos or reed organs, things of that nature.
Oh, they're tuning forks.
And yes, exactly.
Wow.
Their logo is 3 tuning forks.
I thought they were drumsticks.
Sort of crossed in a compass.
I just thought, I was thinking back to like the Toyota T symbol where I'm trying to spell Yamaha out of every little like shape in there.
Yeah.
There's kind of a Y.
There's kind of an M at the bottom. It kind of comes up to a point, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, so Yamaha spent this like a good portion of the 60s building a prototype car. Like they built a car themselves because, you know, motorcycles are good. That's good money. Pianos. They'd opened up several music schools at this point in time. But, you know, a luxury sports car, that's where the big money is.
Well, and it's a whole new market.
But yes, and Yamaha, you know, they're not like they don't sell cars. They're not known for that. It's kind of congested in the Japanese automaker market in the post-war economy as like things begin to get better and better throughout the 1950s and into the 1960s. So Yamaha's not necessarily looking to become an automaker. They don't want to put, you know, fully into that. Into that world, but they are looking to just, you know, build a car and find someone to partner with which to sell that car. And who do you think they picked?
They picked the other sci-fi logo here on the left.
They picked Nissan. You're right.
Oh,
You're both right, boys. They picked Nissan. So yeah, they had a tentative deal in place for their sports car that they called the A550X. That they were ready to start going. Like the ink was dry. The ink was almost dry on the contracts. But at the 11th hour, Nissan actually purchased Prince Motors, which was another Japanese automaker of the 1950s
It's a little
and the
automaker
1960s.
from Minnesota. They only made purple cars.
Oh, he made little red Corvettes.
Yeah.
That you'd wear a raspberry beret while driving.
Yeah, in 1999.
But
Dearly beloved.
Nissan, through their acquisition of Prince, also acquired the Skyline, which was kind of one of like Japan's like top sports cars at the time. So Nissan Datsun acquires Prince. Now they have a sports car. They don't have a need for the A550X and Yamaha anymore. So Yamaha is sort of left at square one. But Toyota is in the market to have a sports car, and Yamaha has one ready and loaded to go. So they decide, hey, let's partner up and let's make a vehicle together. And with that, we say hello to an old friend from the first episode as well.
Oh, damn.
The Toyota 2000 GT.
Was this sold under Toyota's name, or was it like a collaborative Yamaha-Toyota name?
This was a Toyota car. Okay. Most people did not know about the Yamaha influence.
Oh, really? Here I thought Yamaha would plaster their name all over this.
Yeah, no, Yamaha has always kind of subtly been in behind the scenes of a lot of really cool cars. There's like the Ford Taurus SHO, which was super high output is what it stood for, but that engine, not a Ford engine, one manufactured by Yamaha.
Okay.
Yeah, Yamaha has like worked and collaborated with a lot of different like automakers to either maybe not necessarily like sell them an entire car, but like help make performance vehicles or help a auto brand become more sporty. I believe they've also, alongside Toyota, worked with Lotus on their like cars, which is a British automaker. But yeah, so the 2000 GT is Japan's first real supercar. They got rid of the inline 4 from the Toyota Sports 800 and took a little inspiration from the Europeans, who were starting to do a what would be called an inline 6 or straight 6. That is the 3M GE engine right here, sort of the power plant in which a lot of Toyota performance would be based off of in the future.
Okay.
They actually took a inline 6-cylinder cast iron engine that Toyota had been working on, and Yamaha went and made an aluminum head for the engine. The engine comprises of usually two parts, a block and a head. Those are sort of the two that separate, so you can get to the pistons if you're doing a full engine rebuild. And this was sort of revolutionary at the time. Like most blocks were cast iron block, cast iron head.
Gotcha.
Not many people were incorporating aluminum at the time,
That'd
but
be
that
heavier,
gives you
right? Aluminum's a lighter option, right?
Exactly, yes. You save a significant amount of weight by using an aluminum head, so that you get a little bit more performance out of it that way. I believe this was a 2-liter, or I believe they also offered a 2.5-liter version as well of this engine, but it was like, at the time, it put out 150 horsepower, which isn't much. Like my 4Runner, which is widely known as being criminally underpowered, makes that exact amount. But it, for the 1960s in Japan, that was really good performance.
Well, yeah, especially if your rally car only had 49.
Yeah, 48 horsepower.
48
that was
horsepower.
And that was an up-tuned one.
Yeah,
that, like people were, putting elbow grease and mechanics tricks into.
This is a whole new world when you're hitting that many.
Absolutely. And a lot of teams came into play here as they call out here in the middle. Yamaha used the fact that we make pianos, so the entire...
It's made out of real eagle wood?
Piano wood, yeah. Wood that looks like glass.
Wow.
But they actually, so they had their piano division mold like the interior paneling and then lacquer it. So, you have...
Imagine showing up to work that day like, hey... Boss says, stop making the pianos. We got a new thing. We're going to make, it says paneling
Interiors
for our car. So let's figure that out, boys.
That's somebody pushing the big red button on like the disposal part of the job where they're just kind of like, wait, boss, what if we took all these pianos that, defects in the wood, and we can use them for the interior of this car.
Yeah, I mean, if you have some throwaway grand piano tops or something of that nature, you could re-steam them and get them ready to go inside of a car. It could be good upcycling.
Yeah.
And once again, this is Toyota's flagship car. They want to get it in front of people, so they, one, want to send it racing, and two, take any opportunity that you can to get it in front of people's eyes.
Get it in a movie.
In 1967, they made it into a Bond car. And the Bond film, You Only Live Twice, which takes place in Japan.
Oh.
They made two specific 2000 GTs for this particular movie because Sean Connery was too tall to fit in a regular 2000 GT.
Yeah, they turned it. They cut the top off of it.
They
right?
sure did,
yeah.
and they made it look like it was a convertible, but they never made a convertible variant.
Wow.
And he was not only too tall to sit in the car with its head, he was too tall to reach the pedals. So anytime anyone's driving this car in the movie, it's actually like the Bond girl, Akiko.
Wow.
Who is driving the car because Sean Connery was just too big for it, which for me is heartbreaking because if I ever won the Powerball, I would love to have one of these, but I would know that it'd be it's just something that I look at in a garage because I physically could not get into or out of nor drive it.
What a shame.
Absolutely.
Sean Connery's not a big dude.
I think he was relatively tall. I think
thought
he was
average,
plus 6 foot.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, a big Scotsman in 1960s Japan. Apparently, just not the target audience that they were looking for.
Not the one in mind when they were making that car.
Bummer.
Not at all. Which is ironic because, I find out nowadays, after Toyota sort of hit the American market and figured out we kind of have to make these cars.
Their butts are so big, guys. We gotta make these cars wider.
We got to put these big fat crackers into something that they actually fit in. Mm-hmm. And so and the multiple Toyotas I've owned, Corolla, Supra, Camry, and the 4Runner, I've always fit very well in those cars. Whereas my dad's 1985 GMC High Sierra, which is a massive fucking 3/4 ton pickup. My head touches the roof, and the steering wheel is almost poking me in the gut, depending on how much I've had to eat that day. So they've inevitably figured it out, but they did not figure it out in the 1960s. This picture here, we get to see a couple iconic Toyota cars. We're going to talk about the one in the foreground first in the yellow and green livery, but we will come around to the white and red one a little later on in our episode. So, but yes, so we got the car in a Bond film, and we got to get it racing.
Gotta get it scooting.
And boys, it fucking pissed excellence.
It was the best thing.
It was such a good car. It was such a good car. Man, did it race, and it won races as well. In its first win was the same year that they started producing it, 1966, in the Suzuka 1,000 kilometer race. Took first. It also took first in the 24 Hours of Fuji. Japan had caught racing fever so much they were just copying kind of any races that were going on at the time. And so there's the very famous 24 Hours of Le Mans in France that's been going on for, at this point, half a century.
Tell me about it, because I do not know this. Is it who can go the furthest in 24 hours?
Yeah, it's who can put up the most laps, but oftentimes it's also an endurance race for not only the car but the drivers, because you only get to switch out drivers so often, and you only get to change out tires and refuel your car so much. So instead of being directly who can go fastest in a straight line, it's who actually can strategically plan your pit stops, have your drivers be in fit enough shape to actually endure, and is the car well built enough to actually be able to deal with 24 hours of not insane balls out driving, but hard strenuous driving, which a lot of cars you can't just take your fucking Chevy Sonic out and
No.
just beat the piss out of it.
And just go like, yep, 24 hours nonstop. It's gonna make it.
Rocking around South Mount Vernon for 24
I got
hours.
the
just
Scion
red
for
line.
16 hours straight when I drove to San Francisco. That was,
Oh, damn.
And then it was about like 10 hours in. I was thinking like, wow, you know what? Should cars be running this long? Were they meant to run this long? And yeah, it's quite the endurance.
Some of them can, some of them can't, but it definitely, like, anytime you're driving your car that long and that hard, it's taking time off the engine, unless it's a really, really well-built car, probably like your XB.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But they had one of these like 24-hour races around Fuji.
Fuji Speedway.
Oh, Fuji Speedway.
Which I believe is not necessarily anywhere near Mount Fuji. It's just a Japanese racetrack. I believe it's somewhere in the northern prefectures of Japan.
Okay.
A lot of country up in that area, so it's a lot of good place to put racetracks.
So they're just going in a
also,
track. They're just going in a track for 24 hours.
Uh-huh.
It's not like like the race around Australia where they're just seeing how far they can go.
That's what would get me the most is like, oh my god, 24 hours of just turning left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not only did it do that for 24 hours, later on in the year of 1966, it set 13 speed and endurance records at the 72-hour test trial at the Yataba High-Speed Test Track, which it's a racetrack, but they don't do a lot of race there. It's where like Japanese automakers go to sort of put a car through its paces. And so the Tosco team spent 3 days straight just driving the ever-loving piss out of this yellow and green livery 2000 GT.
Nice.
And it held up. And in that time, it set records for like longest car, like longest time driving a car straight with minimal like pit stop breaks for fuel and tires. It set a land speed record at one point in
Holy
time.
shit.
Wow.
They made it like we could stop here. Like we made it the best car.
Yeah.
Why make other cars?
This car did so well that day through like 72 hours of like some pretty, at one point in time, like I think for 2 of those 3 days, it was just pissing down rain.
Wow.
As well. So like, it's just you're driving in the rain at any point in time. Like you've been driving for hours upon hours straight. If you like lose concentration, you could spin this car out and then, wrecked it. Which sadly did end up happening to this car, the one specifically here. In this picture, the one that's in this picture is actually a car that Toyota went and replicated.
Gotcha.
Because they wanted to keep celebrating. But unfortunately, I believe in 1967 or 68, this car ended up in a wreck with a pace car in one of the races. I didn't get the specific name of it.
I thought you were going to tell me it's the one that James Dean died in.
No, that's a Porsche 918 Spider, I think.
I could tell you right now, Kennedy would not have died if he was in one of these.
Yeah.
I mean, Oswald would have had a much harder shot through that tiny little back window.
But he does have a big Massachusetts head, though.
He does have a big, fat Irish head. Which is always like it's like you're on.
He was just begging to get shot.
It's like you're on DK mode in 007 GoldenEye. It also did so well, like it became sort of a worldwide like auto racing icon in its short period of time. Porsche was so pissed off about this, like its performance at the Yatabe like high speed test track, because some of those records that like of those 13 records it took were Porsches. That they went out and built like a whole new variant of the 911. Never forget.
They got so pissed off. They're just like, stop everything. We need to make a better car today. As soon as we can to get our records back.
Mach Schnell. Our old allies from that war that we don't talk about anymore just went out and beat a bunch of our records. We can't let them do that. It also garnered the attention of another racing legend down here in the bottom left corner. This is a gentleman known as Matt Damon, a.k.a. just kidding.
What?
It's Carroll Shelby, who Matt Damon played in Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh, okay. Here I was just kind of like, no relation to the actor.
No relation to the actor whatsoever. No. Carroll Shelby racing icon. So much so you have many movies made about like his racing career. Ford versus Ferrari being, probably the most successful one recently. Icon took big Ford V8 muscles, put them in lightweight British racing cars, and then made, racing history at the 24 Hours of Le Mans when Ford and Ferrari were having their rivalry in the 60s.
Okay.
He also, made his own auto company, Shelby, which made the Cobra, one of the most like sought after cars. Like pretty much anything that Carroll Shelby touched is a treasure in the automotive world.
Gotcha.
Really kind of outside of like maybe the Dodge Omni, which is a real little shitbox of an 80s car that kind of is so powerful, and it's front wheel drive and its axles aren't the same length. So like when you really kind of give it the beans, like the car wants to pull you really hard in one direction as you shift gears. Not his best work.
Okay.
But this man also, helped develop the Dodge Viper. He like anything that's like sort of iconic in American automobiles. Probably good chance Carroll had his greasy little fingers up in there. But he was so impressed by what he saw out of the Toyota 2000 GT, he wanted to bring it to America so that he could race it in some Sports Car Club of America, or SCCA races.
A midnight club?
No, very much like a daylight club. It's like a brunch club.
Yeah, no, it was definitely done at daytime. And he wanted to race it in what was called the prepared car, but that was for cars that had a less than 5-liter engine. So what Carroll Shelby was used to stuffing in cars, those big-ass Ford V8s, wasn't going to be legal in those races. And he wants to win all of the races, so he needs something that's has something less of an engine to it.
Oh, so he's kind of like he's eyeing Toyota, being like, "Well, we'll take your engines and put them in my car."
Well, no, he just bought three Toyota 2000 GDs.
Oh, damn! Okay.
Shipped them over to America to have them race. They did well, but there were European and American automotive brands who figured out how to kind of just get underneath that 5-liter threshold. And like these had a 2.5-liter engine, so you're racing cars that almost effectively double the displacement as you.
You're punching above your weight class in a way.
Definitely. And they did. Like, they performed well. They never won any of the races, and Carroll Shelby moved on to bigger and better things pretty quickly from this experiment. Later on, Toyota purchased one of the cars back from Carroll Shelby so they could replace the wrecked flagship car. That's what this car is right here. This is actually one of the GT 2000 or 2000 GTs that Carroll Shelby had purchased for his race team that Toyota bought back from him and then repainted and replicated their record-setting car that they have still in like their automotive.
So even though it's a replica, the car itself still has history.
It still has a racing heritage. Okay. Absolutely, yeah.
I do love the Sonics colors on it, though.
Hell yeah! Oh yeah, no, it's great.
I'm gonna say it is very classy.
It's got gold. It's also got that they're aping the British with British has like racing green.
Yeah.
In a lot of their liveries, so they put that on there.
I do like the whatever logo's on the side of it that makes it look like it's the sticker on a banana.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. I think that might actually say Tosco. It's hard to see. But yeah, this was an example of a Carroll Shelby 2000 GT. One of them sold, one of the two remaining that were part of Carroll Shelby's collection, sold, I believe, like 12, 13 years ago at auction for, I want to say like $2.7 million.
Wow.
So
Damn.
Did very well for itself there, just by, having Carroll Shelby spend a cup of coffee with it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Toyota, it got to its coming out party in the automotive world. And it was time for them to, continue the endeavor, to continue to build better cars so that they can pursue, the pursuit of building ever better, like, race cars and ever better road cars. And with that, they made their next car,
Celica,
sort of flagship car. Yes, the Toyota Celica. So this is a car that they made from, I believe, 1972 all the way through till 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, because I know the name, but it definitely doesn't have this aping American muscle car kind of body anymore.
Very much so is. They definitely copied Ford's homework on the Mustang.
But these are like the 70s ones. But like the
Yes.
2000s ones, were they still aping like 2000s?
They looked like weird spaceships.
Yeah.
I don't have a picture of one of them in this presentation.
Yeah, because I remember a really curvy, like...
The Celicas had the high spoiler, like high back end, towards their end, right? It was like
that was the Supra that had the big old wing in the back,
the fat ass.
But yes, so the Celica was Toyota's first time sort of endeavoring into the sports car field in the American market.
Okay.
They had some success. They were beginning to get traction in America with their passenger cars. You had the Corona, the Carina. But they wanted something that they could continue to build off of. And so they wanted to, once again, kind of get a flagship, get that something that gets people in the door. Their international Land Cruiser strategy had worked really well in other markets. But America's, it's the 60s. We had big trucks and off-roaders. You may not have had such a receptive audience with the Land Cruiser strategy in America. So you kind of have to meet them where they're at. And so they produced the Celica. This is known as like the A20 or A30 chassis code. It was actually built off of the Toyota Corona platform.
Okay.
And at one point in Japan, it came in 49 different variants.
Fuck yeah.
So
Make it yours.
fellow Celica heads, if I get some things wrong on the Celica, please, forgive me. But yeah, it took, like I said, its inspiration from the American pony cars, like the Camaro or the Mustang. And it's also, I've presented this car before in my first episode, because the A40 or A50 body style were where they introduced their top trim level of the Celica Supra. So this is the car in which the Supra is built off of.
It was like a mitosis or whatever, where the cell split and then they became two separate cars.
That came on a little bit later in the 80s. So the second generation of the Celica was the first generation of the Celica Supra, and then the A60 body style, the third generation of the Celica, also had a trim level of the Celica Supra or the Celica XX in other markets. But it's also where things get a little bit spicy. Before, mid 1980s, they decided to split them off. And the Supra becomes its own car. But before we get into the third generation Celica, what? Tosco's evolving.
Oh my
TRD.
God. Press B and make it stop. Make it stop.
We're not stopping. You get your finger off that fucking Game
Press
Boy
B.
right now. We're going to let it evolve, because in 1979, Tosco gets a brand new name and a cool logo that you're going to see on the side of every fucking Tacoma for the rest of your lives.
TRD.
Tosco becomes TRD, Toyota Racing Development.
Can I be a stick in the mud? What's going on with this R? I see it's like the NASA worm logo. It's that
I think it's supposed to be showing hairpin corners on a racetrack.
Okay.
To invoke that sense of racing.
I hate
feel
it,
like
though.
if it yeah. I just don't like that white space cutting in so much.
I think if they're going to go for a racetrack
cover
thing, it should all be connected in some way. I don't like the R is bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certainly biased when it comes to...
Somebody should have pushed the big red button on the design process of this.
That's kind of what they've run with. It's gone relatively unchanged. This is the logo they used in 1979. I think they kind of fixed the R in later iterations of the logo. But yeah, so Toyota is now, we're fucking pushing all the chips in.
We're doing it.
We
We're
are
racing
all
now.
in on
We're
racing,
racing guys.
Toyota Racing has developed, and not only are we going all in our Japanese market, they also open up a American division of Toyota Racing and Development,
Okay.
just outside of San Diego, California. And these are two independent entities where like the Japanese team is working on its own projects, its own sort of engines, its own performance parts, and the American division is also working on its own things. So they get to kind of independently choose what they want to emphasize in motorsport and like what they want to try and take on. This is kind of where I came into analysis paralysis on what was going to cover.
Oh, because it's just
in this
like,
episode.
There's so many. I mean, not only with like the two independent development teams, just the breadth of projects. I can imagine just so much spaghetti. All the spaghetti.
So much spaghetti. This is where I ended up deleting slides because I can only go on for so long about different races and different cars, and sort of narrowed it down to try and really dig deep into like kind of one or two different.
You're going to return
stories
to this topic.
There's so much meat left on this bone for me, and the next two episodes are entirely different things.
Okay.
So I still have a lot to keep pulling from in future episodes. But yeah, so Toyota Racing and Development, like here in America, it was a place where you could get performance parts for your Toyota, things like spoilers. Okay. Upgraded suspension, better air intakes, and even things such as like mundane as like oil filters, air filters.
But you're getting top of the line Toyota branded parts for your Toyota.
Absolutely. And then they're like dealership warranted. So like if I had a second generation Celica Supra and I went and bought the sick ass headlight washers that TRD made for it, those are warranted. Like those are like, hey, if these break within a certain period of time, I can take it to my Toyota dealership and they'll fix it for me or replace them. So it's it was a good marketing strategy as well, especially in your like constantly uphill battle of the American market where you make something, but it's just not quite enough for most Americans to really latch on to and love. But so we have our two divisions. We've done some racing. Now it's time to really just get balls deep in racing, and we're gonna return back to our Toyota Celica here.
Ooh.
Okay.
And so
I don't see any lions. I don't see one Mufasa. I don't see one Simba.
Not a
King
damn
Africa,
lion.
my ass. It's not this pack of cigarettes on wheels.
There are several Marlboro sponsored cars on this screen. But this is where we get to our King of Africa, which is a nickname that was given to the Celica as Toyota Team Europe, who was working with like the Japanese manufacturing TRD division, began to rally race. This is the 80s. This is the Wild West of like Group B rally racing, where everyone's just building the most insane fucking cars that they can because you only have to make like so many of them. Your homologation special like regulations are super low in a lot of races like NASCAR, other series where like you're racing a car that you actually manufacture and sell, not one that's only meant to race. You have to make what are called homologation. Like you have to make a certain amount of them that you sell to the general public in order to be able to like qualify to race in those events.
So understandable. And these are your oddities where it's like, well, we made the limit set down to like what, 100, possibly you made 50 of these.
A few like at the peak of Group B, like there was like you had to make like 20 of them.
Holy shit!
And so like many auto manufacturers would just make 20 and then buy them back and then never sell them to the public. Like Audi did that. Like they didn't sell many Quattros, and also the ones that are actually racing are even more tuned up versions.
Yeah, they're
of
one
the
of
road car.
one of those cars.
But yeah, Toyota had a. They kind of hit the ground running in 1982. They introduced the Celica Twin Cam Turbo. That's our car down here in the bottom. One that actually in a recent video game called The Art of Rally gets a tip of the cap to. In like the car is called the King of Africa.
Wow.
It had like a 2.5 liter inline 4 twin turbo engine. It was rear wheel drive. But a lot of cars in WRC were at this point in time. And this particular, just this one car, the Twin Cam Turbo, won 7 WRC events in 4 years, which is pretty good.
Oh, damn.
It won 1 in New Zealand, and it won 6 on the continent of Africa. 3 Rally Côte d'Ivory in the Ivory Coast.
That's how you earn the nickname.
And 3 Marlboro Safaris.
Yeah, baby.
So that was sort of the car that started it for Toyota and WRC. And that's what earned the nickname the King of Africa. And Toyota continued to kind of perform well on that continent. Overall, throughout the multiple generations here, the twin cam turbo, the ST165, which was the 4th generation of Toyota Celica, where they had split at this point in time from the Supra, and the Celica was its own thing, as was the Supra. The homologation special of the ST165 became the top trim you could get of a Celica, that you could get for the 165 and 185 variants here in America, cool. Which is pretty rare. We don't normally get a lot of cool stuff. But these were also known as the Celica All-Track or the Celica GT4. They came with a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine and all-wheel drive. So, cool shit. It makes you, rippity brop through corners super fucking fast. Nice. They have a lot of success in the, I believe, just a little over a decade that they were running Celicas in WRC. They racked up 30 victories, 17 of which were won by Carlos Sainz, this gentleman right here in the Cigarettes ST105 mobile.
Oh my god.
He's a Spanish rally driver who just could drive the ever-loving piss out of a car. He has his co-driver over here, Luis Moya. In rally racing, you have teams of 2 in the car because at this point in time in rally racing, the cars are moving so fast that drivers... you've begun to push the limits of human reaction time. Even people who have amazing reaction time, like auto racers. So you have a navigator, 1, to help you figure out where the racetrack is, but 2, they call out the turns
right
before the turns are coming.
Slow down.
The lunar module pilot to the commander, in essence. They're there to just read off gauges and tell you what turns are coming up. And it's a bummer they lost the Lindsay, though. They lost the Booney who's in the back seat.
I'm inevitably going to do some stuff on WRC, and I think it's actually just an entire sport filled with Lindsays. WRC was fucking nuts, particularly in the Group B days. Carlos Sainz, he raced from the mid-'80s into the early 90s with Team Toyota. He raced with several manufacturing teams, Lancia, I believe Audi at one point in time.
Okay.
Race car drivers are kind of mercenaries. You race out.
I was just going to ask, some stick with one company and other ones just sort of bounce around wherever the money's good.
You go where the money is. There isn't a lot of money in racing, so if you can reach the upper echelon where there is some, you got to follow the money best you can. And also, like any athlete, there's a window in which you're going to be able to perform at such a high level.
Oh yeah, nobody wants an 86-year-old rally driver.
Nope. You're going to die.
What? You said a left now? There's a tree there. I can't drive left.
There used to be a Safeway over here.
By the time the syllable for safe is coming out of that man's mouth, he's plowed into 50 people standing on the roadside.
Frederick, you're in reverse.
But Carlos got to see through the golden era of Toyota rally racing when they were really kicking the most ass. He made the transition from the ST165 into 1989 in honor of the birth of Taylor Swift. Toyota decided to launch a whole new 5th generation of Celica. The ST180 was the chassis code for the consumer car that you would see driving around on your regular roads. But for the rally version, it's the ST185. They always knock it up a 5 to denote that this is the rally version or the homologation version of the rally car. And this one also performed pretty well. Here it is catching some sick fucking air, and I believe Kenya.
This is a dope picture.
It is. It embodies what Toyota Team Europe was doing in the rally scene as they were transitioning. Things were getting a little tougher for Toyota at the time. They were sort of kind of the first Japanese rally car on the scene to incorporate like turbochargers and all-wheel drive in their vehicles. But by this point in time, like Subaru and Mitsubishi are starting to enter the scene with their WRX STI and the like Lancer Evolution. So the wins do start slowing down a little bit for Toyota, as well as like this is now Group A racing. Group B's been banned because too many people were dying. And so you're dealing with like different restrictions, like your car can't be as powerful anymore. You're having to like detune these cars. They're nowhere near the levels that they once used to be. But Toyota still held up, still won some races, and I think, like, you know, after like 1991, Carlos Sainz moved on. He also has a pretty insane like legacy in racing in general. Like his son, Carlos Sainz Jr., is like one of the top Formula One drivers right now.
Oh, damn.
He races for Team Ferrari.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
a racing dynasty.
Yeah, he's built himself like the Pettys or the Earnhardts of America. He is like they're a European automotive Spanish legacy family. And then lastly here in 1993, Toyota introduces its 6th generation of Celica, the ST200 chassis code, my personal favorite generation of the Celica. It launched the same year as the Supra, and the body styling of the Celica is very Supra-esque, except it's got these weird bug-eyed
I'm not a fan of the bug
headlamps.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
If the headlights were square, I would like it a lot more.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
that,
that's
rounded off square.
that's how a lot of people feel. The 6th gen Celica is definitely not one that gets a ton of love amongst even Celica or Toyota enthusiasts because, one, it's just a not cooler. Like in America, we didn't get the GT4 variant. So the only ones that we got here in America were front-wheel drive, non-turbocharged, with the same engine that you'd get in a Toyota Camry.
Gotcha.
So definitely not cool. They came in a convertible. They're kind of generally known as like if you have a teenager, this is one of the first cars you get them because it looks sporty, so they feel cool, but it's got a Camry engine and it's relatively safe, so they're really not going to get themselves in too much trouble. Plus, it has a convertible, so you can make them
Take your top off.
Kids are dumb. High school kids will think it's cool because it's a
You can
convertible.
show off how rich daddy is.
Yeah. But the rest of the world got the ST205 or Celica GT4 variant, and it was one of the coolest automobiles that you could buy at a Toyota dealership. I'm so these are now starting.
They never came over here.
They just now have been able to be imported in thanks to the 25-year import rule. And I've seen a few of them, and it's taken everything in my power to not cash out a sizable chunk of my retirement account to buy one. There's a few things deterring me. One, it's got a lot of specialty parts for a car that was never released in America, so getting parts for it to work on it would be pretty difficult on a at least 25-year-old car that probably needs maintenance.
That makes sense.
But the technology that was included in this car was insane for what was being offered. Subaru was also selling its WRX STI to the masses, not here in America. And Mitsubishi was selling its Lancer Evolution to the masses as a part of homologation rules, not here in America. But all those cars are now starting to come in. But what Toyota gave you in the ST205, if you were to go out and buy one, is a lot of the rally technology that they developed throughout the 80s while they were dominating the continent of Africa. So this is the car that you can buy, the detuned version that you can buy and take off the lot. It came with things like water injectors in the cylinder, so that to help cool your engine and keep it from overheating.
So you're getting what's on the box.
You're getting racing technology.
Yeah.
So just like Kiichiro Toyota had spoken at this point in time now, 42 years ago in the past, of we race so that we develop the technology that makes our road cars better. But yeah, so you have injectors that you're cooling your pistons down so that you prevent overheating and parts wear so that your car can last for longer through extremely grueling conditions. It had a mister for the intercooler. The intercooler is like a second radiator for your car that's just meant to keep the turbocharger or supercharger cool, the thing that gives it all its extra power.
I get you.
But there's a 2-part component for that. Like if you can keep it cooler, it's not going to wear as quickly, and if you can keep your turbocharger colder, it cools the air more as it like condenses it and forces it into the engine.
More air, bigger boom.
Bigger boom, more power. It also came with an anti-lag exhaust system, which is, I think, like the first consumer vehicle that came with one of those available. An anti-lag exhaust system is an exhaust system that's set up to maintain back pressure, so it sort of closes itself off when you're shifting gears and your like car is in neutral and not generating power. And it's not like directly driving and like turning the momentum of the engine into the momentum of the car, so that you do not lose as many RPMs when you're shifting. You can keep your car in its revolutions per minute in the sweet spots of its torque curve. Typically with like a turbocharged car, there's like a certain band of like, say your car goes from 0 to like 8,000 RPMs on its red line. Sure. Somewhere between like maybe 3,000 and 5,000 is like the sweet spot.
That's where you want that.
Just like when you're a baseball player, you have a sweet spot of your bat. Like that's where you're going to get the best performance out of your swing.
But this is all for exhaust, so it's like it's a sphincter in essence to keep that pressure back. So when so if you need that pressure there to keep those RPMs in that sweet, like Toyota's developing things that I feel like, why are you overdeveloping? An exhaust, but if it impacts performance, then the work shows.
And Toyota wasn't first to the scene with an anti-lag exhaust system. They were just first to the scene, like to one you could buy at a Toyota dealership.
You can just get that as an option on the car.
Yeah.
A lot.
And like you guys may be familiar with this if you like watch like, underground racing videos, or I think they've even had it in like, I don't know, they don't super emphasize it if they've had it in Fast and the Furious, but like the car sounds like a Tommy gun going off when it's in anti-lag mode, because it's like blocking it off, so it's that like fire spitting
the bubble exhaust in essence. That's where, because
and because you have unburnt fuel that's like coming in from the engine into the exhaust, and it's in this hot exhaust, as like the air is introduced, it ignites within the exhaust system, and then you get like flames shooting out your tailpipe, which is cool as fuck.
Dude.
But yeah, so that's like the technology that Toyota was now handing down to the consumer. But like I had said, Toyota's competition was getting really fierce, and the Celica Toyota Team Europe had been asking Toyota, like, hey, can we get a shorter wheelbase car? Can we get something a little lighter? Something that would help us keep up with, Subaru and Mitsubishi and what the European teams are doing. Toyota, like through corporate, through TRDs, like, nah, we're rocking the Celica. It's the car that we took to the dance. That's what we're sticking with. Much to the chagrin of the actual racing teams. It was beginning to get outperformed, and so desperation is the mother of invention. And in 1995 at Rally de Catalunya, they get caught.
What'd they do?
So by this point in time in the 90s, Group A rallying and W2, there's so many ranks of rallying. I can't get all of them right. My apologies to listeners who are big WRC heads. But like, they had killed off Group B because the cars were too fast and people were getting hurt and dying. So then they like installed new classes.
What else
rules.
happened? That's not a good enough reason to shut it down. Come on, guys.
No,
Thanks,
not at
woke
all.
culture.
But these teams, they keep innovating. They keep throwing money at it because the cars are selling.
They can't write rules in the book fast enough to keep up with the technology that's being developed.
It's true, yeah. And so by this point in time, like, they're getting close to that Group B threshold again. So the FIA, the Federacional International Automobili or whatever, the Italian group that like governs all auto sport that isn't NASCAR.
Chef Bropardi.
FIA for short. The FIA for short. They begin to put some rules in place.
The Marinara Motor Council.
Mm-hmm. The Gabagool Cabal. Giuseppe.
Parma gone in 60 seconds.
The chicken pie.
The Italian sub job.
But anyway, those Italian fascists had to ruin everyone's good time by telling them that you had to put a restrictor plate in the inlet to your turbo. So you're putting a piece of metal that blocks airflow.
Like, I see that. That's the thumbs up part. No air is going through. Where in the thumbs down part, you see that there is almost like a, hey, follow the maze. Follow the maze here of how air can get through there.
Yeah.
It looks similar, but...
So this is how it's supposed to be, and down here at the bottom with the thumbs down, this is the inlet restrictor. That's that your restrictor plate, and that's how the FIA intended people to race their cars.
Yeah.
What Toyota came up with was a little system to get around that. It was a relatively very
cheating,
clever.
You ain't trying.
Exactly, Zach. Exactly.
I see.
And everyone in all motorsports, particularly the WRC, was also cheating.
I'll tell you
everyone. Peugeot was known for like modifying and making illegal aero like body kits that gave more aerodynamics to their cars. So even though they weren't faster or lighter than other cars, they just had more downforce that kept them stickier to the racetrack. And so what Toyota came up with was a system of beveled washers, so that that were just loose enough so that when like the car was just sitting at idle and FIA inspectors were going around before every race and inspecting, the restrictor plate looked like it was exactly
everything
where it
looks
to
on
be.
the up and up, but then once you start driving it, those beveled washers
once the turbo
shift.
boost starts kicking out pressure, the beveled washers allow the inlet plate to pull back ever so slightly, allowing in 25% more air, which in this time, like,
sneaky,
which was estimated to garner another extra 50 horsepower.
Wow!
And at this point in time, the WRC,
it's a whole nother ranch,
in this
if you're getting 50 more horses in there,
a whole new ranch.
No.
Someone called the Dutton Ranch in Yellowstone. Call up Kevin Costner, because we need some more ponies flowing through this engine. But yeah, so at this point in time, like, every car is restricted to 300 horsepower. So, like, you could run less. Why would you? But everyone effectively that's racing supposedly has the same horsepower. There's, like, slight differences. Maybe you have a better drivetrain or better aerodynamics. But, like, mostly it's like...
They try to keep everybody in that bracket.
Yeah.
And this was a way for you to be sneaky and get out of it.
It was a way for Toyota to kind of keep up with the Joneses a little bit in a car that they didn't think, the folks at TRD kind of came up with Toyota Team Europe of like, yeah, you're not happy with the Celica. Well, here's a way we can maybe get around it and win a few more races. And Toyota did well, like in the 1995 season. The Rally de Catalunya was actually the second to last race of the season. And they had multiple victories.
They've been cheating the whole way, and then it was
whole season
just getting close to the end, close to the finish line, and then finally the jig was up.
Almost got away with it, but then it was suspected another team bribed one of the members of Toyota Team Europe to anonymously report like what Toyota was doing to the FIA. So much like Boeing, we had a whistleblower. But I don't think this one got murdered. But yeah, so the FIA, after the Rally de Catalunya, which Toyota had won or gotten very high place in, I can't remember, they actually went like, okay, even though you passed inspection before the race, we need to bring you in. We're going to take your car apart with a fine-tooth comb and see what we have to see. We have an anonymous report. And they inevitably pulled the turbocharger apart and discovered their little workaround to the restrictor plate. Toyota was disqualified. Like all of their wins were abdicated for the
Oh,
1995
damn.
season, and Toyota was banned from the 1996 season, which effectively like ended Toyota's time in WRC for a long, long time. It took a few decades for them to re-enter the fray of
Okay.
that race class. So this was kind of a, it was the boost that they needed to get the performance they needed to kind of keep up with manufacturers who were outpacing them at the time. But it did end up kind of spelling the end of Toyota and WRC, and like a tarnished end to the legacy of like the king of Africa and these wonderful rally Celicas that had done so well for a decade and a half. The FIA actually, in interviews, had said that it was the most brilliant cheat that they had ever seen.
Well, yeah,
Give it to 'em. You gotta give it to 'em, boys.
Subtle.
They're like, they were cheating, but goddamn, they were doing it like they were doing it the best. But yeah, and inevitably, like this kind of also, I would think, helps spell the end of the Celica. It had lived on for multiple decades. In 2000, it got the 7th generation Celica, which looks more like a spaceship. It also gets a slight teaser in the Fast and the Furious. You get to see it for like a couple seconds at Race Wars.
Oh, okay.
Because Toyota was like, once again, using the movies to get its car out in front of the people. Which it was a pretty short-lived iteration. It came out in 2000. It was front-wheel drive only, no GT4 configuration, no convertible even. It just had a couple different engine options with like a manual or automatic transmission. And by this point in time, American tastes were kind of changing. Muscle cars were coming back in a way. You also had the retro futuristic trend of like the PT Cruiser, the Chevy HHR, and SUVs, throughout the 90s, and like without slowing down became like the most popular category of consumer automotive vehicle. So
the market just wasn't there for
kind of dried up,
spaceship car.
and the Celica sadly went goodbye in 2005. So this one's to you, the Celica, the little pony car, the little imitation car of American muscle cars that Toyota just put out to try and like appeal to dumb crackers, that ended up accomplishing so much more and spawning so many legacies that no one had even thought possible. And now I know what you're thinking if you're a listener of this podcast, especially given the previous episodes I've put together. But what about trucks?
Oh,
Trucks.
We've been
trucks,
talking a
and
lot
more
about
trucks.
cars.
I felt like the curtains were closing for a second there. Nope, wait, no, the movie's not over yet.
Nope, we have two
what about
stories to
trucks?
tell. Yeah. What about trucks? I've talked a lot about the fantastic
What is
trucks
this, a
that the
country
Toyota
music song?
It is.
But what about trucks?
Well, if you guys don't remember, Toyota does have an American division of Toyota Racing Development.
Oh,
And what do Americans fucking love?
guns
That's true.
They love trucks.
and trucks.
They love paying for healthcare. They love not being very good at education. They love inordinately having adults that believe in angels. But yeah, trucks are also on that list
Yeah.
of shit that we love. And I've talked a lot about a lot of great Toyota trucks, and I'm not going to really reiterate about the Land Cruiser or the Hilux or anything of that nature, or even the Ute variants or the SUVs. I'm not even going to talk about the 4Runner.
Talking about the Tacoma?
We're going to talk about not the Tacoma neither, which is just then they decided to give it a name here in America. We're going to talk about the Toyota T100,
Oh, come with me if you want to live.
the lovable loser of
My
the
mind
Toyota
was
truck.
not as fast as yours was, Ryan.
Yeah, Toyota didn't intend that at all.
I think it's the T800.
I
It's
I
1000, isn't it?
think Arnold
It's
is
a
the
T1000?
What?
Isn't it a T1000?
T1000 in liquid metal.
Yeah, that's the Terminator 2 Terminator. I believe, yes, Arnold is the T800. I have no
It's just 7 generations away from being an Austrian man.
Yeah, an Austrian death machine. The T100 is a relatively short-lived Toyota truck. It was from 1992 to 1998. Only sold here in America.
Yeah.
It was manufactured out of the Numi plant.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, I believe that's where I got it started. It might have been manufactured. Toyota was beginning to open up more automotive plants in America at the time, so it may have moved elsewhere. But yeah, Toyota was like, hey, let's make a full-size pickup. We have the Hilux, which has done pretty good in America for several years. So much so, we gave it a name in 1995. Mm-hmm. But, Americans, everything's bigger in America.
We need something bigger than the Tacoma.
We need something bigger than the Tacoma. So, in a weird move, they decided, let's just put a bigger bed on a Tacoma. And that's all the T100 is.
Oh.
It's an 8-foot bed as opposed to a 6-foot bed.
Wow. That's it.
But this is what Toyota attempted to pass off to the American audience as a full-size pickup truck. Like, for example, Chevy has the Silverado as its full-size pickup, but it also has the S10 as its like compact or mid-size pickup. Toyota just took their mid-size pickup, slapped a slightly bigger bed on it, and called it a full-size pickup.
But just about everything the same under the hood.
Exactly. Yes. So this
everything but the extra 2 feet of bed.
Yeah. So it's effectively a Toyota Tacoma with different headlights, a different front valence. It has the same 3RZ inline 4 that my 4Runner has. That's criminally underpowered, which you would definitely not want in a full-size pickup. But it also has the 3VZ or 5VZ, depending on what year it came out. Post-1996, it went to the 3.4-liter 5VZ V6 engine. But once again, Americans, full-size pickup, that motherfucker better have a big old V8 in it.
Oh, of course.
So it's too small. It's underpowered. It can't tow my boat or my trailer or all my shit. It's got a tiny little cabin. It ain't got a crew cab so that I can throw my 40 fucking kids in.
Yeah. You get who they're trying to make this for, but it's half measures all the way down the board.
It's really one of the few times Toyota half-assed something.
Yeah.
It did leave, like T100s, they are still Toyotas. They are still running. You see them for sale. I kind of want to get one. Like I have the 4Runner, but if I ever want the convenience of a pickup bed and I kind of want to be a little eclectic, just like a little
weird,
you a little
more space
like,
in the bed too. It'd be cutesy. Put a mattress back there.
Yeah, be a little kirked up white boy with my T100 driving around. But overall, it's still a Toyota truck. It still has that great performance. It still has the same wheelbase as a 4Runner or a Tacoma. So it's going to get you where you need to go. And it's going to do it for 1 million fucking miles. But yeah, overall,
the Middle East probably went ape shit over these. Because
you can fit 2 guns!
2 feet more.
2 guns!
You could fit 2 feet more. Bigger gun, more ammo.
Maybe Toyota got scared from what it saw in the Toyota war, but this, I believe, unless it got exported out of America, I don't believe that these sold in the Middle East. So there may be some T100s rambling around with some freedom fighters in it right now, and my salute to you, boys. Tear down the Imperial War Machine. But yeah, I don't think there's as many as there are rolling Hiluxes or Land Cruisers. But yeah, so we have this truck. No one loves it. And we need to race. This is a racing episode.
Okay.
We just need, maybe if the vehicle ain't right, maybe we just need the right driver. And this is where Baja gets blasted by Iron Man.
Whoa. Iron Man Ivan Stewart.
Which Bond villain is this? What Mortal Kombat character is this?
He might be like who Johnny Cage was based off of, if he wasn't based off of Jean-Claude Van Damme. But no, this is Iron Man Ivan Stewart looking tough as fuck. This is the cover picture of his website.
Nice.
And this
This
guy,
is all you need. You don't even need credentials.
this guy is like one of off-road racing's like icons. Rallies off-road racing as well. But we don't do a lot of rallying here in America. What we instead do is like endurance, like trophy truck racing, because we love our trucks here.
Gotcha.
But we also do, buggy racing, things of that nature. And that's sort of the humble beginnings of Ivan Stewart. He was born July 4th, 1945.
Oh my God!
Just a couple
Wow,
days.
that's quite the birth date.
I know, just 2 days before D-Day. He saw the fall of the Germans and never forgot.
Never took his foot off the gas, running away from it.
Nope. He was born in Oklahoma, so he is a Southern boy.
Boomer Sooner, baby.
Was quickly transplanted to San Diego, California. So really more of a SoCal boy.
Okay.
Part of the Iron Man nickname comes from the fact that he was an iron worker. He worked for Atlas Fence Company, who is a name you guys might recognize because it's like they make chain link fences.
I've crawled over their product several times in my life.
Yeah.
Their product doesn't really work.
If you give me 10 chances, I could probably guess the number that is on that.
But yeah, so that's what he did for a living in his early 20s. He was an iron worker, part of where the nickname came from. But he also had a love of just off-roading. He did go-kart racing. He loved dune buggies because he was from SoCal.
Okay.
And at 28 years old, he was scheduled to like run his first race as a co-driver with one of his good buddies, Bill Hrinko, spelled Hyrnko. They were scheduled, like, Bill's going to be, sort of the primary driver, and Ivan's supposed to be, sort of the co-pilot driver. Yeah. You switch off. These are long races. This was the Ensenada 300.
Within the first 5 minutes, Ivan starts shitting himself profusely, and they have to sit in the car the entire time with his shit and vomit.
Almost. I mean, I guarantee you Ivan Stewart shit at himself in the seat of a race car no less than probably a baker's dozen of times in his life. That's racing. You pee in the seat, you pee in the suit, you poop in the suit if you got to, because you can't pull over. Like that, you're losing sponsors if you're over on the side of a bush or a cactus taking a shit when you're running Baja. But yeah, his first race, the Ensenada 300, which is out of like the Baja Peninsula of California going into Mexico.
Okay.
Sort of a starter race, 300 miles, not crazy long by like these sort of trophy truck race standards. Or buggy races. They're sort of like they race dirt bikes. Like a lot of these have like multiple classes of vehicle. But unfortunately, 2 days before the race was set to begin, Bill fell off a ladder and broke his leg.
Oh no!
Wow.
This is the movie I want to see.
Mm-hmm. So Ivan, not to be deterred, like he signed up for that goddamn race. He's got octane in his blood. He's got a need for speed. He decides, fuck it, I'll go it alone. I'll drive it myself.
Shit. He doesn't even get like unassuming co-pilot. He doesn't call up his friend Greg and just like...
No, you just said, fuck it, I'll do it myself. I'll take all the abuse. I'll piss myself.
I'll piss and shit for the both of us, buddy.
Yeah. So, despite the odds of driving entirely solo, and it being his first, like, dune buggy race, he fucking won the thing.
Wow.
Oh, damn.
He just came out swinging, batting 1,000 as a racer, and then a legend was born. 3 years later, in 1976, Ivan competed in his first Baja 1000, which is a 1,000-mile race. You might have heard of it. As you can see, it's got all those sponsors there, including the country of Mexico and Monster Energy.
Imagine something sponsored by the United States of America.
Yeah.
I think I saw Herbie race one of these.
I mean, that could have definitely been like a later iteration, because a very popular vehicle for these class of races is buggies.
Yeah.
That's a Chenoweth V-Dub buggy, and in 1976, Ivan, keeping with tradition, raced the Baja 1000 totally solo, and won. his first Baja 1000 in a buggy just like that. I like to feel like him and Charles Manson were kindred spirits, and if only they had been able to like make a connection at some point.
That'd be the worst co-pilot of all time.
Hey, man, hey, I want that to go right there.
Hey, wow, you gotta go over there.
Or could we have like averted one of history's greatest monsters if he just simply got really into racing?
If we knew of Charles Manson as the failed musician, but great fucking Baja
Yeah, that guy
racer.
couldn't play music for shit, but goddamn, that motherfucker could drive. Yeah, man, Sharon Tate would still be with us. But yeah, Baja is a punishing 1,000-mile-long race from Ensenada, California to La Paz, Mexico. Drivers need to contend with heat, so that's not only the driver, that's also the vehicle as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, these are race cars. You don't have, one, they're open cockpit, so AC is not going to do anything for you. And two, like an AC, that just robs performance from the engine and is extra weight, so you don't have any air conditioning, and you're still racing through, the Baja Desert, which can, in the summertime, get, north of 110 degrees. So your engine, is also contending with this heat, and you as a driver are sweating your ass off. It's also like dusty, sandy terrain. You're like constantly, you have to wear goggles so that you're not getting dust in your eyes so you can't see. You probably constantly have the grit of like dust in your teeth.
Oh, yeah.
You're probably thinking to yourself, I hate sand. It's coarse and it gets everywhere. And it's also just physically punishing. Like it's not like a racetrack with this smooth, like asphalted surface.
As you can see on the map, you're going through mountainous terrain throughout the entire thing. There's very little.
There's dunes, there's hills, there's just uneven desert terrain, and so like for 1,000, like. You know how much it feels like you got your ass kicked when you do like a cross-state road trip, like even like 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
You get out of that car and you're like, damn. I just feel like I got my ass kicked. Mm-hmm. Imagine doing that for 1,000 miles while like you're actually getting your ass kicked by being thrown around and jostled. On top of anything that's coming out of your body, you just gotta have to sit and live with till you get to your next checkpoint, like where you can refuel and probably change your race suit.
Just rolling around with just dusty turds.
But yeah. Ivan already setting up his legacy here. He just, he's in buggies. He's kind of looking to make the next step up, get into trophy truck racing. That's kind of where, the money and the glory is. When he won in 1976 in that buggy, he won $500.
Hot diggity daffodil.
From Valvoline, and his first Ironman title from winning the Baja 1000.
Okay.
So it's a multi-front nickname. One, he did work with iron professionally,
but the Iron Man is like the name of a trophy.
That is like the winning racer of the Baja 1000 wins the Iron Man award.
Do you happen to know how long it took him? Like what kind of time that is?
Yeah.
I don't have. You're flying, so I imagine it's like a multi-day race, but probably not like nowhere near the 19 days of the Round Australia Rally.
Yeah.
You're
probably on your 2021 map. It's from the 15th through the 20th, so you can assume 4 to 6 days, depending on how your press is only going to be there for the 5 days to watch so many people go over the line.
I don't even think it's like 4 to 6. I think this is maybe 2 to 3. Because you are racing really fast and like kind of knowing like distances, like cannonballers, like another thing I may cover in a future episode, where like the goal is to get from New York to LA as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Like they've almost cracked 24 hours. Like they've gotten to the point where they can get to like.
I have an update on the 2023 score of the fastest time. It was 22 hours, 35 minutes, and 33 seconds.
Wow.
So yes, it was even behind the time. Someone has broken the. Was that the northern route? Does it specify?
It says. No, this is Google AI telling me this, so it doesn't even show me sources.
No worries. Because there is a northern and a southern route. The northern route's the traditional one that Brock Yates started, and it's like roughly 3,000 miles. Mm-hmm. Or the 2,804 miles exactly from New York to LA. And like, so, you know, if you're really hauling ass and you're timing your pit stops, I know there's checkpoints where like you probably rate, like, you know, get a time to rest, fix your vehicle, refuel, and then probably race the next day with like a staggered start based off of like when you got to the checkpoint. But yeah, so, you know, Ivan's looking for the money. He's looking for corporate sponsorship. And who should come knocking in 1983? Good old Toyota.
Oh.
TRD and Toyota Racing Development decided to strike up a partnership. You know, they're trying to sell more trucks in America, and if you can get them into an automotive sport, like, hey, that's the way to do it. So for the rest of his career, Ivan Stewart raced in a Toyota truck. And as we can see on like most of these pictures, like this one here, or particularly like this section of the line here, this is where you're starting to see that like legendary TRD red, orange, yellow gradient livery.
I love it.
It looks so damn classy.
It's wonderful. Toyota recently busted it back out for the 40th anniversary Toyota 4Runner, where it runs from like the C-pillar right by like the cargo area all the way to the front of the rig as like a nod to TRD's racing heritage. But yeah,
I love that
Ivan,
pinched front end in that bottom right photo. Like how pinched that grill is. Oh, that's hot.
Yes. So in 1983, Ivan, with his team, Precision Preparation, Inc., partnered with Toyota to get that corporate sponsorship money and some vehicles supplied for you. No longer are you like racing in a vehicle you built in your garage. You're still working on it in your garage and building it, but like Toyota's giving you the base for it. In 1983, that's when he began to race, and he first raced in a Toyota SR5, otherwise known as the Hilux.
Oh, okay.
And I believe in 1988, he won his first Baja 1000 he won multiple Baja 500s with the SR5. And then in 1993, he won the crown jewels of off-road racing, which is the Mint 400, the Baja 500, and the Baja 1000. Sort of like the triple crown of horse racing.
Those are the big three races.
The big three off-road truck races. Or just off-road races in general. They also ran dirt bikes and ATVs and buggies on these same races. But in 1993, he won all three of them in that SR5 right there.
And he got a video game based on it.
Yeah, he did.
I hate this video game.
Yeah.
This thing has eaten so many of my quarters.
Yeah.
I always think like, oh no, I'm going to get it this time. But then once your car is pointed to the left, right, or down, I am absolutely fucked on which way to turn the wheel.
Yeah. In like the late 1980s, like 1989, Virgin Software, sponsor deal to build a game called Ivan Stewart's Iron Man Ivan Stewart's Super Off-Road.
Yeah.
That was built for arcade cabinets originally, like you can see here. I also brought up the point just to confirm with Ryan, because I remember that this was in the arcade of the Smoky Point Alfie's Pizza.
It was at the. It was definitely at the Smoky Point Alfie's, and it was at one or two other locations, and I can't remember if it's the old arcade that the Everett Mall had back when. But yeah, I remember playing this at more than just Alfie's.
But yeah, then
it's
later
a staple.
It got adapted to like the Sega Genesis, the Toyota Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo. They almost brought it on to the Atari Jaguar, but then they kind of scrapped it because they saw the writing on the wall with that console. But yeah, so Iron Man Ivan Stewart, he's won multiple Baja 500s, over a career of 80 race wins. He it is TRD. His toured. he had already cemented his legacy as one of the greatest drivers ever.
Yeah.
But in the late '90s, Toyota was like, "Hey, let's give you a little bit of an upgrade here. Let's get you out of that SR5, and maybe this will help us sell a few more T100s." So they gave the Precision Preparation Incorporated a T100 to work with. And not only did the T100, effectively get rebuilt from the ground up to be a trophy truck, obviously no bumpers, so you have better clearance, bigger, wider fenders. This is all made of fiberglass, so it's lighter. There's really not a truck chassis in here. It's only got one seat directly in the center, too.
Sick!
And the steering wheel's directly in the center, like a McLaren F1 or, like a monocoque.
So he's still doing I'm doing all this solo thing.
Yeah, he's still rolling solo. He's like,
does this man just not have
he
friends?
has trust issues now.
His one friend broke his leg, and he's like, "No, you can never race with me again."
He's just like,
I'm the
only motherfucker I can depend on. And so,
he
and
got
like,
into some real
real
weird stuff while he was driving alone, and he can't face having another person in the car with him to see him do what he does.
Absolutely. No, he didn't want anyone to know he peed his pants.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and instead of a 5VZ V6 engine pulling out a whopping 185 horsepower, this was actually supplanted with one of like Toyota's UZ V8s, specifically tuned for racing, that put out 550
it's a
horsepower.
whole lot of horses. So, but this was like a 3-cylinder before or a 4-cylinder before? The engine in the T100, you were saying?
The T100 on its at its worst configuration, its cheapest possible one you could buy in the 90s if you were buying this like fool's full-size pickup, was the 3RZ FE 4-cylinder engine with 150 horsepower and a lot of pluck. You can get one to 330,000 miles. I can attest to personally. But yeah, like this truck also too kind of became an icon of like 90s off-road racing. Like when many people think of trophy trucks, like this T100 is what comes to mind. And in 1998, Ivan Stewart capped off a career with, sort of the legacy of his career with his third Baja victory.
Wow.
His third Baja 1000 victory, I should specify.
Dang. So he's already got like 2 1,000 trophies just sitting at home.
One in a buggy, another one in SR5, and then one for the T100. One for every
How old is he at this point? If he's born 45,
this is 1998, so he is now 53 years old.
Yeah, so I mean, we made the joke earlier. If you don't want the 86-year-old.
No, he's 47 years old. Okay. I went in the wrong way.
Okay.
But still, I mean,
better.
not a spring chicken by any means in the world of automotive.
The man
racing.
had a 16-bit game. He's not a spring chicken by the 2000s.
And I mean, he was quoted before this race as saying, like, if it doesn't break, no one's going to be able to touch me. Prophetically, announcing like, I'm just going to fucking come out and just destroy everyone in this race.
You've already fucking lost, boys.
It had, in this particular style of racing, which you see an incredibly stupid auto trend for, as you can kind of tell, like the suspension travel in the rear isn't as much as the suspension travel up front.
Yeah, I was going to ask if the front tires were larger as well, but it's just the suspension just playing that optical trick.
They have more like travel in the front suspension. The theory on this is like, have you ever seen a guy like jump a dirt bike? The goal is to try and land on the rear wheels first. It's the same philosophy in like trophy truck racing. Like you try to want to have the back end touchdown first, because if you land front first, like you're not going to be as stable. Like you can't power out of the landing in the same way. And this has unintentionally created one of the stupidest trends in cars, which, Zach, you might see around Texas from time to time, is the Carolina squat.
Oh?
If you ever seen a truck that just like its ass end is super low, but its front end is super high.
It looks like a dog trying to itch its butthole.
Exactly. It looks like a dog with worms. Yeah, that's like much like the stance scene comes from like the drifting of like, oh, you stick your wheels out a little further and fuck with your camber so that you can like slide sideways better and have more stability. People just took like, oh yeah, this trophy truck racing thing, it looks really cool when I'm just going down the road. Never mind that I'm now looking at like a 45-degree angle into the sky, and like I'm never gonna see.
I already couldn't see the little kids in front of my car, but now
exactly, which is part of the reason why the state that the trend is named after, North Carolina, has now like outlawed that mod. You can.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, be ticketed and arrested for doing the squat.
Also, in the top left picture, are my eyes playing tricks on me, or are the wheels not perpendicular to the ground? They're angled out?
No, they have a little offset camber to them.
Okay.
Yeah, as well, it gives you... you're racing on dirt, so you're going to slide a lot more than if you're on asphalt, so it helps to have a little bit of understeer so that, you don't oversteer into a turn and end up whipping and spinning out.
Helps some stability. You mentioned camber.
No, that truck is also stanced and it's got the Carolina squat.
God damn! This shit's pimped out.
Where's
1998.
Exhibit? What would Exhibit do with one of these?
He would probably put like 50 DVD players into it, maybe a fish tank.
With a bed that's 2 feet
Yo,
longer.
dog,
We could put
I heard you like
pool in the
iron, so we
back.
made your whole car out of iron.
Yeah, this car's so heavy. It weighs 17,000 pounds, and it can't move. Although this one also very heavy, and with that big rip-roaring V8, this thing got 4 miles to the gallon. It had part of what's weighing down the back of that as well is spare
Fuel.
tires and a 47-gallon fuel cell in the back.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, this was like the last major win of Ivan Stewart's career. In 2000, he hung it up. Having won more Baja 500s than anyone else to this day at 17, 3 Baja 1000s, and over 60 other off-road races. A truly storied career. He continues to work with Toyota as a consultant. He coaches for future trophy truck drivers under Toyota's team. He gives input on the TRD models of the Tacoma, 4Runner, things of that nature.
Cool.
And Toyota, to celebrate his career, they even... When they decided to finally replace the T100 with an actual full-size pickup, the Toyota Tundra, which came out in 2000, by 2002, they created an Ivan Stewart edition of the Tundra that they did for multiple years. It's super confusing to figure out which years had it, because I've seen multiple examples, and I went down a hole on a forum trying to get there, but I just couldn't quite.
It's just a shotgun blast of...
But ostensibly for maybe 10 years, you could this was your top trim Toyota Tundra for in terms of performance. There may be more luxurious models in the limited that are a little cushier and a little easier to drive on road. But if you want the one that has that off-road performance, you go get the Ivan Stewart edition. They sold roughly 2,000 of them every year that they made them, so they're relatively rare, bit of a collector's item. And they came with upgraded suspension. They came with a TRD supercharger that put out more horsepower out of the V8 that was inside of it. And they sold relatively well. Each Tundra always sold. Each year of the Tundra always sold better than the T100. So Toyota finally figured it out.
They lived up to what's supposed to be on the box, in essence.
And then, to pay tribute to, the man in the truck that got them to where they wanted to go in off-road truck racing, they paid tribute.
Looking at the front of that thing, it's got
I was just going to... Yes,
is
Zach.
it King Louis? That was the product of several generations of inbred, and he had the underbite.
Oh... You're thinking of the Habsburg jaw from the Habsburg royal line, which are, I believe, Austrian, but it was the royals in Europe at that time were all relatively relatives, family. Yeah,
it gives me PT Cruiser vibes in a way that
I think it's the time,
just the front end.
model time that it came out. You said this was 2000 when he retired, and that's when the model started trickling out. Yeah.
Well, Toyota had been incorporating the fat lip bumper into multiple models of its vehicles.
Oh yeah,
for
this
a
car's
few
got
years.
a chaw in it.
I mean, I hate to bring the attention to it, for fear you boys will mock me, but my 4Runner also has the fat lip style bumper.
Well, here's the thing: your
it.
4Runner also doesn't have like the lights that bleed into the skull of this thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole
This
composition
is very much
of it.
the 2000s, where everything needs to look like very sleek. There are no angles, no boxiness whatsoever. The back taillights get small and circular and silly looking. But yeah, I would love to get my hands on one of these Tundras someday, and I thought it was a fitting tribute to a racer who helped you. You've set out to become good at racing, so you can continue to make ever better vehicles. They learned their lesson. They made an ever better truck, full-size pickup, by actually making a full-size pickup.
Okay.
And they paid homage to the racer who helped them get to
It
that.
kind of gets like
learn those
the
lessons
Shelby
to get
treatment. The Carroll Shelby treatment, where Carroll Shelby did so much for not just Ford, but for cars in general, and he gets to be honored in such a way. Ivan Stewart, I didn't realize, had his own model get named after him. That's quite the honor.
Yeah. And then by this point in time, TRDs become incredibly ubiquitous amongst Toyota models. Like anything that goes off-road, and even some things that don't, have a TRD model. Part of this is the current CEO's philosophy of no more boring cars. You can get, TRD editions of what you would expect. You have the sisters of the Tacoma and the 4Runner. They're built off of relatively the same platform. The Tacoma being the more pickup truck, and the 4Runner being the sport utility vehicle. You have multiple TRD editions of each of these. In the new generation, you have multiple TRD off-road, multiple TRD Pros, multiple TRD Trail Hunters and Bajas for the Tacoma, and Trail Hunters, Pros, Limiteds for the 4Runner. And then the other two sister vehicles, you have the Sequoia and the Tundra, the full-size pickup and the even bigger SUV in Toyota's SUV platform. Those also have their own TRD Off-Road, TRD Pro editions, so that, TRD can permeate everything. And usually they come in these off-road vehicles with more performance, but also more things that you would spend your money on anyway if you were just buying a base model, say 4Runner. You go get the TRD Pro, it's got upgraded suspension, it's got bigger tires, it may even come with factory bead-locked rims, so that when you hit a big rock, you don't pop your rim off of your tire off of your rim and then lose air and deflate your tire. It also comes with armor. There's TRD skid plates that you'll see on TRD Pro versions of Tacomas, Tundras, Sequoias, and Tacomas, so that if you run over a big old rock, you're not going to immediately gash open your oil pan and destroy your engine or transmission. So you just have a thick plate of metal down below. But they've even started putting TRD in non-conventional vehicles. The RAV4 is kind of the closest to the actual off-roaders. It does have four-wheel drive. It's getting bigger. Even though it's a crossover vehicle,
It's leaning more and more into the SUV.
the current 4Runner is bigger, or the current RAV4 is bigger than my 4Runner.
Oh,
It's
damn,
everything continuously gets bigger constantly in the world of vehicles. But even, it's all-wheel drive. It's still a unibody. You don't really want to take it off-road, but it's good, I guess, in ice and snow if you live in a place where it gets that because of the all-wheel drive. But then they also have TRD Camrys and Avalons. Camry being the number one car for
Avalon
a guy.
Man.
Yeah.
What the fuck's an Avalon?
It's a Camry, but for people who want to flex. It's a hoity-toity Toyota Camry. Okay. And the mid-2000s, Toyota decided hey, we got the Camry and we've got the Lexus, but we also want to sell some Lexuses that are built. All of these things are incestuously built on the same platforms. So Toyota took the Lexus LS, which was also built off of a Camry chassis, and made the Avalon, which was a 4-door variant, and then the Solara, which was a 2-door variant. because why? Let's make a Camry that's less convenient
Well, why
because it
not?
has less
Why
doors.
not?
And a lot of Solaras are also convertibles, so boomers just love the fucking shit out of them. But yeah, Avalon is just really for like, I guess, like the middle manager of the people who are like data input specialists.
It's the upsell car.
They
when
drive.
you're looking at the Camry, or the guy's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, but come on, bigger seats. You get
Like you
two less miles
you
to the
don't
gallon
have-
in this car, though."
Yeah, the interior looks a lot fancier.
you don't quite have Lexus money, but you still wanna flex. You go get your Toyota Avalon. But yeah, so TRD, while not the only game in town in terms of Toyota racing anymore, has permeated and it's cemented its legacy, here in America, at home in Japan, and around the world for, its multiple variants of racing wins and, off-road and on-road performance. And, all it started was with, 3 boys, 2 languages,
Yeah, really just
the good old
one.
Outback.
Just
On a-
only Japanese.
on a 19-day road trip.
Yeah.
At the behest of, the CEO.
And losing too, almost being like, you're like, did you say like 56
Yeah.
cars, 50 something cars finished? They were in the 40s.
47th out of 52.
Wow.
Nice.
All of this launched, what inevitably became, an empire of racing performance and just sales.
Yeah,
And-
it's more than just a marketing gimmick as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, if you were to gun to my face ask me before you did this what TRD like, and I was just like, oh, it's probably just like a body package or something. Because I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I
cars.
thought so
Yeah.
too. I thought
But
it was just
it's-
like a new branding for, like your STI package or whatever.
But having an entire tier of parts and internals for your cars, the things that you will use and need, better suspension and everything else, rather than just sort of like, no, this is our racing edition. It's cool that a lot of this is under the hood.
Yeah, it's taking the technology that they've developed, like through like the trials of like grueling races, and implemented into their road cars, like fulfilling the vision that Kaiichiro set out for in 1952. So, thank you, boys, for sitting with me and listening to my rendition of a small sort of slice of like racing stories within the Toyota racing development. Once again, I want to thank everyone for listening. My name
course.
is Taylor, to my right,
I'm Ryan.
and our loyal computer.
Beep up beep. I'm Zach.
Thank you so much for listening to Tales of the Slide Deck. And next episode, we'll see you on the two gays.
Whoa!
Ooh.
Is that Mulholland
Where the
Drive?
fuck's
What is
this?
this? What's a two gay? I have to tune in next week
this-
for the next episode.
Was this an initial D? Oh.